water from the Carlisle Reservoir and other sources, and things have been flowing pretty well. And the Corps of Engineers let us in on the fact that they are holding some water upstream that can be released if things get a little tight downstream. So they have a contingency. Now here's what it gets down to. It's not easy. When we built this Missouri River Reservoir system, the federal government built this in the late 40s and early 50s. It was a federal investment with a federal purpose, and the purpose was spelled out in law. The water is to be used for the following things: for navigation, for water sources, for irrigation, for power generation, for recreation, just to mention a few, all spelled out in the law. So whenever the Army Corps turns to release this water, the locals say, don't touch it. And then they have to look at the federal law, which limits what they can do. What the White House has said, in an emergency, we will not rule this out, but we anticipate a court contest over our authority to release it under the law.
So no request, no formal request has been made?
No formal request at this point.
At this point, how much longer can we go on the calendar before at the lowest point there's some sort of catastrophic disruption to these soybeans?
Well, at this point we feel that things are moving forward. There will be. The hydrological map that they told us about shows things getting better, progressively better on a historic basis. Now we can have a bad year, and what we anticipate, but we don't think we will reach that point soon, where the river faces closure. That's the one catastrophe that we don't want to see happen.
Senator, a lot of people have said that this might not be a one-off event, that this drought may be part of the larger climate changes that are taking place, so that indeed we could hit a point where almost every year about this time we encounter a crisis like this to the Mississippi River. How does that change the planning that federal agencies have to do if this is not just a one-off occurrence, but if this is going to become fairly regular?
This is an extraordinarily bad situation because of the drought that I think affected almost 70% of the United States in the last year. So this year is particularly bad. The lowest river levels have been through 70 years. So this is really an unusually bad situation. But let me answer your question directly. We've had 27 straight years of uptick in the temperature on Earth. There's a message from God which says things are changing. And we have got to do things to avoid the disasters in the future where we can, and to live with changed circumstances where we have to. And what the Corps is doing here is not only to try to clear the river for this current emergency, to make sure that this is an ongoing commitment that just doesn't end this year, but continues to make sure that this channel is open, anticipating further challenges in the future.
Senator, what's your take on Senator McCaskill calling for federal action on the St. Johns Bayou New Madrid Floodway project?
I'm not familiar.
Not familiar with that, okay.
Senator, some of the infrastructure along the river is a little outdated. There's a proposal from the industry to raise the taxes that they pay for diesel. Do you have any thoughts on that proposal?
It's long overdue. Let me tell you, the locks and dams are taken for granted here, and we've taken them for granted for too darn long. We have got to make sure that we modernize these structures. We authorize this at the federal level, but it's worth nothing if you don't have the money behind it. And what the industry has said is we will pay more to upgrade the locks and dams to make sure that this river is served with the modern infrastructure that it needs for the 21st century. I think this ought to be part of a much larger discussion about infrastructure investment in America. The Chinese invest 9% of their gross domestic product in infrastructure. The Europeans 5%. The United States 2.5%. We cannot be competitive in the global economy if we don't invest in our infrastructure, and finding revenue sources for the river, for our highways and airports as well, will be a critical part of that conversation.